ticking, yeah, we on that time. 60 on the board, now we start that climb. Get ready, get set, yeah, the moment's now. When it hits 0, we gon' show you how. Run! Yeah, 50 seconds, feel the energy rise. Heartbeat fast, yeah, you feel that vibe. Lights get bright, yeah, the stage get set. We ain't even started, but you ain't ready yet. 40 on the clock, now we pick up pace. Every second count, yeah, we in that race. Crowd tuned in, yeah, they locked in tight. Whole room buzzing, yeah, we taking flight. Yeah, 30 seconds left, now we turn it up. No slowing down, gotta fill that cup. Energy peaking, yeah, it's building fast. Blink one time, might miss that blast. 40 on the clock, yeah, we feel to the heat. Baseline knocking, got you out your seat. Hands go up, yeah, we ready to go. Whole vibe shift when we hit that flow. 10, 9, feel that energy climb. 8, 7, yeah, it's almost time. 6, 5, yeah, we live right now. 4, 3, let me hear that crowd. Steve on the mic, yeah, the nurse got skill. Break it down smooth, keep the whole squad chill. Talking about kidneys, yeah, we keep them on track. If your number's off balance, he gon' bring them right back. Got the wisdom on deck, no stress, just facts. Hydration, motivation, every time he reacts. From the clinic hallway to your podcast feed, dropping gems so fresh, yeah, that's all you need. Stevethekidneynurse, yeah, you know the name. Keep your body in check, yeah, we play no games. Real talk, real health, yeah, we keep it pure. Tap in right now, Stevethekidneynurse, yeah. Stevethekidneynurse, yeah. Stevethekidneynurse.
Welcome to Dialysis in Life with Stevethekidneynurse, where we talk honestly about kidney health, dialysis, and the real life issues that affect patients and families every day. Welcome. I'm Stevethekidneynurse, and tonight we are discussing a deeply important and often overlooked issue. Now, denied life-saving treatment, the alarming truth about dialysis discharges. Now, unfortunately, one of my panel members having trouble getting access on, so we hope that she can continue to try to see if she could get on the show. If not, we're going to definitely have to do a part 2. But let me tell you, for patients living with kidney failure, dialysis is not optional. It is life-saving. So what happens when the clinic decides to involuntary discharge a patient? What happens when access to treatment becomes uncertain, delayed, or even impossible? Tonight, we'll hear from medical professionals, advocacy leadership, and a patient who have experienced this reality firsthand. We'll talk about the health risks, the emotional turmoil, the ethical questions, and what can be done to protect patients before they fall through the cracks. This is a conversation about care, dignity, and survival, and it starts right now. Before we bring on our panel, let me go over my medical disclaimer. Where's that disclaimer at? Where is it at? Here we go. The information broadcast on Dialysis in Life with Stevethekidneynurse is provided for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Now, with that out the way, let me introduce tonight's panel. I'm just going to bring them all on, and then I'm going to introduce them. as they come on. So let me give all of them the VIP welcome. Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Right.
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let me introduce tonight's panel. I'm going to start off with Joni, nurse practitioners. Joining us is the dialysis MP with direct clinical experience in dialysis care, who can speak to patient support, treatment continuity, and the challenges frontline providers face. Next, I have Dr. Shadima, nephrologist, who is a kidney specialist who brings medical expertise and perspective on the risk of interrupted dialysis and the clinical impact on patients. Then I have former board president of AAKP along with us, and the co-founder and vice president of the APL01 Health Alliance. Is that right, Richard? Richard, can you hear me? Richard, I don't think he can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, was I correct on that?
Yeah, you're fading. Yeah, I didn't hear that. You were fading in and out.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was right. As vice president and co-founder of APOL1 Action Alliance. Right. And Richard is bringing the patient advocacy voice and leadership perspective to this conversation. And I have honored to be joined by Larry T. Hall, who was involuntarily discharged from a dialysis center. He sued the dialysis company and won the right to consistent treatment in the hospital. Now, our other panel member, Mitzi, also known as the blacklisted patient who is having trouble, is a patient who is still blacklisted and currently receiving treatment in the hospital ICU and after being involuntarily discharged. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for being here tonight to discuss a very important topic. But before we get started, I want everyone to take a look at this video. It's a little long, but I want you to take a look at it and then tell me your thoughts.
Man to be removed from receiving life-saving medical treatment. But exactly what he said matters.
Was it a threat, something less harmless, and should he be punished for it with his life? Tonight, Chief Investigative Reporter Lauren Traeger is looking into the consequences of your words. 81-year-old Gene Peliquin spends a lot of time alone. When not on the porch, he's slowly making his way to his car to drive himself to the ER, all to sit there alone again and wait, not for an emergency, but a routine procedure twice a week.
They sit you in the chair, they put two needles in, one at the top and one at the bottom, draw blood, circulates it, cleans it.
The ER, the only option now to keep him alive. For the past 10 years, 3 days a week, he'd been treating his end-stage renal disease at this outpatient center in Creve Coeur.
We were doing it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
That is until recently, a letter in December saying he will, quote, no longer be able to seek treatment there. Officials saying his words were a direct threat to the health and safety of people at the facility.
So Davida says you said, quote, that you would shoot us and shoot the building up because I'm fed up with the machines not working.
That's what she said. I didn't say that.
Escalating disputes, he says, with a worker had angered him.
And I said, it makes you so mad, I keep a gun. I never brought a gun into facilities.
Did he mention a gun? Yes, he says, saying he prays he didn't bring one in.
Were you mad at the time?
Yeah.
Did you intend to harm anybody?
No, you can check my record. I'm 81 years old, record clean as bean. I ain't even had a ticket in 60-something years. A speeding ticket. They can check all of that. I ain't got no kind of record.
But with that now on his record, Gene can no longer get care. Not here, not at any DaVita location.
You can't find anywhere for him to go.
Nowhere. And his daughter says with it in his medical records, other companies are rejecting him too.
Lord, what has happened? You know, because it's like, you know, what are you going to do? You know that with dialysis, especially if you have to have it. Without it, you're not going to live more than a month.
Though he'd never hurt anyone, she says she's taken his gun away as a precaution. Emergency room staff have said he is not presenting imminent danger to himself or to others. While police were called after he left, Gene was not charged for the incident, and when contacted by an officer, the report says he denied saying what DaVita said he did.
I'm sure he's learned a lesson because he's paying the ultimate price. You know, ultimately, you know, he doesn't get what he needs.
Unable to comment on his case specifically, in a statement, a DaVita spokesperson wrote to First Alert 4 Investigates, quote, ensuring the safety of our patients and teammates is a responsibility we take very seriously. If a patient threatens violence, we work closely with the patient's entire care team, including their outside physician, to determine the best course of action. Regretting now what he did say, the punishment, Gene says, is too severe.
They killing me legally. If I can't get treatment, if you don't get treatment for 3 or 4 weeks, you dead.
This is a major problem, and it's a national problem, and I think it's very, very little understood.
Tom Mueller's the author of a book specific to this issue, an issue called Involuntary Discharge. Federal law allows dialysis facilities to refuse treatment if they have, quote, determined that the patient's behavior is disruptive and abusive to the extent that the delivery of care to the patient or the ability of the facility to operate effectively is seriously impaired.
In many cases, I was able to determine that those accusations were false.
But while he says there should be due process and chances to appeal, regulators, he says, are often understaffed or ill-equipped to handle the cases.
I think the foxes are guarding the henhouse here. That's my opinion.
Missouri health officials have flagged providers 11 times since October 2018 for violating involuntary discharge procedures.
And I've spoken with a lot of patients who are in that kind of limbo state, and you know, most of them have died since this book was published.
While he acknowledges facilities must be safe, he, like others, believe involuntary discharges should only be an option of last resort.
I don't know the specifics of this case, but I do know that it fits a general pattern.
Words matter, and organizations and companies have to take it seriously.
Michelle Vining is a licensed clinical social worker with a background in criminal justice.
The law enforcement side of me was like, ooh, we can't do that. Companies, hospitals, schools, everyone has had to put protocols in place because of the things that have been happening in our society.
Words, whether on social media or elsewhere, have in fact turned into action time and again. And even words alone can be considered criminal charges for what's called terroristic threats. The Missouri courts in recent years seeing an increase in those cases, nearly 200 in 2023.
We are human beings. We have thoughts that come into our minds. We get aggravated, we get angry, we get to be that. Pause. Think before you speak.
Vining says patients who are chronically ill can feel intense emotions.
Think about the sickest you've ever been. You're not on top of your game. You simply are not.
Would you say you said some things in anger?
I would say I probably did.
Gene's remorseful, but adamant. He never intended to act.
You never brought a gun in there.
Never have it, never.
And you didn't intend to harm anyone?
No. And still ain't.
DaVita says cases like this are extremely rare and involve fewer than 0.001% of our patients each year. Still, his words carrying real consequences. Instead of getting dialysis 3 times a week, he'll wait hours on end in the ER, going less often than needed, and starting, Wanda says, to decline.
So it's kind of scary to think that you're going to lose a parent.
As he leaves the hospital wondering, will he pay for what he said with his life?
Get me back into regular facilities is all I want. And let me go and live this little few years I got out.
Doctors tell me that patients who get dialysis in a hospital setting instead of an outpatient center do have a shorter life expectancy. And then, of course, There's the cost of emergency services that are often paid for by the taxpayer. As far as next steps, experts say it's often murky to know to whom you can turn to appeal a decision like this. It's an issue we will continue to track. I'm Lauren Traeger. First Alert 4 investigates.
All right. Let's begin with the clinical side of this issue. Before we talk about the personal impact, I want to understand what involuntary discharge means from a medical and care management standpoint. So for Dr. Chidema, what is involuntary discharge and under what circumstances is it supposed to happen?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Dr. Chidema?
Yes, I can hear you. There's a noise in the background, but so involuntary discharge is basically what it sounds like. Is when someone has been discharged in this particular context from their dialysis unit. Obviously, involuntarily will mean that is not what they would have wanted, whether it is warranted or not. Now, there are specific cases where someone would be discharged from their dialysis unit involuntarily. One of them would be, they actually listed them in that news clipping. So a patient who is being disruptive to the, in a way that it's disrupting the running of the unit, taking care of other patients. A patient who you can no longer provide the care that they need. That is, their medical need is above what the facility can provide. And then if the patient cannot pay, when I read about this one, I was like, yeah, probably the commercial dialysis companies lobbied for that one. But I think that's the three things that I remember why a patient would be discharged from a dialysis unit. And I have not had experience with commercial dialysis units, so I have not had an experience with people not paying and what goes on and trying to discharge them. When people have medical needs, sincerely have medical needs above what a facility can provide, that's usually not something that is controversial. Obviously, I can see a situation where wanting to discharge someone, you make up the fact that they have medical needs above what you can take care of. And I would like to think that as human beings, we are above that, but I can see that happening. I haven't witnessed it, again, not being part of a commercial dialysis unit. And then a patient being disruptive to the, in a way that impedes taking care of them or other patients. It's the other category. And obviously, there is when you say something like that, it's really open to interpretation. And I'm not sure what happens with each individual case. But yeah, in a not so nutshell, that's.
Okay. Joni, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. This next question is for you. And we are joined by Mitzi, the blacklisted patient. She was able to get in, so thank her for definitely joining. Joni, from a frontline perspective, what typically leads to involuntary discharge, and what steps should be taken first before a clinic ever reaches that point?
Well, I've seen it firsthand where patients have been threatening to the staff. You've had patients that actually put their hands on staff or say really inappropriate things. Actually have people waiting in the parking lot, like family members in the parking lot waiting on you to get off. So, that's always something that's not okay. And so we reported, obviously, to management. When I was on the nursing side, reported to management. And they come in and they do like a behavioral contract. They pull the the patient in, because it's always two sides to every story. So you pull the patient in, you get a behavioral contract. If the threat was that bad, I've seen them not discharge the patient immediately, but they've had security at the clinic while the patient is on the behavioral contract. So in this area, the behavioral contract, you'll have like the social worker, the FA, which is the facility administrator, or the manager. But if it's a facility administrator, then the charge nurse should be present if one is available. The director of operations for the area should be present as well. And sometimes it could go as high as the VP. Also, the provider, so the nephrologist should be there also. And as a collaborative team, then they will talk about exactly what happened. Is there anything that they can do, to kind of keep it from happening again? Was it something that maybe the staff like triggered them and, caused them to be upset? And yeah, that's kind of how it goes around here. I'm a little biased to it because I feel that sometimes patients have bad days, staff have bad days, and you have to know your patients. I always stand by that because the guy that I did see them discharge, he was a very pleasant guy. And the nurse that he said that he threatened her, she was a very slack nurse. And he cared about his health. He cared about how he felt during treatment. He cared about, the way the nurse handled him, and false assessments, and not getting his medicine, and, dirty syringes being left on the chair side. He cared about proper protocol. He cared about you cleaning your hands between patients. He cared about you setting the goal on his machine. He cared about you asking him the right questions between treatments. And so because she was a slack nurse, I mean, that's the best I can put it, because of her lack of training, which was also a disadvantage to her, right? He had to kind of, express how he felt, which was not wrong, but she took it personal. So I agree with the person in the chat. It is the staff sometimes, and it's okay to admit that and take accountability, because kicking the patient out of the clinic and they don't have an opportunity to go anywhere else, or as the manager, you don't do your due diligence by calling the surrounding clinics to find them a chair because you no longer want to accommodate them in your clinic, then you've done them an injustice.
Let me ask Richard this question. Richard, what is the AAKP's position on involuntary discharge from dialysis clinics, and how common is this issue from the patient advocacy side?
Excuse me. Well, thanks for the question, Steve, and thanks for having me. Now, this is a difficult area, very, very difficult. And from an AAKP perspective, we're always going to advocate for the patients. Now, that doesn't necessarily make the patient right, but we're going to look at things. And the reality is you have these very large companies. And I always tell people, there are some facilities that you haven't gone to that are, let me just say, they're not the best. One of the big issues, and we understand this, and we've had conversations with folks at CMS and other folks regarding this, they have the conditions of coverage that govern what should be done. And you just saw that response from a representative from DaVita. And it sounds very nice. But the reality is, when any large organization, you're going to have situations. And in many times, as I tell people, healthcare professionals are trained in healthcare. In terms of management, in terms of communication, that's something totally different. There's cultural issues. So from an AAKP perspective, from a policy perspective, we believe that involuntary discharge should be the last alternative. And Joni articulated the process and what should be done. And many facilities do that. But some, if you say something wrong, they're human and they will retaliate. You know, and the reality is, come on now, if I say something or you say something and someone else who's very small and meek says something, it'll mean two different things. I have a very loud voice, and someone could take that in the wrong way. You know, at one point, I was stuck 6 times, and I didn't want the person to stick me anymore because they didn't know what they were doing. You just stick somebody 6 times, you don't know, or for that person. And so what AAKP does, and we just don't come up with these things. Many of our members, myself included, have sat on the boards of the networks, the end-stage renal disease facilities that are retained by the government, CMS, to help manage these dialysis facilities and provide them support. And also, it's a place where patients can call, because sometimes, and they may have that organization intercede on their behalf, because retaliation is alive and well. And Johnny mentioned calling around. You're out in a rural area. There's no facility around.
Right.
And I'm just thinking that a man, 81 years old, come on. We're not talking about a large man. And I think, as the doc mentioned, anybody can have a bad day. Right. That's why they need to keep the records. They need to get the team together, have the conversation, try to intercede. But that process varies from organization to organization. So again, AAKP, for example, one of the things that we propose is having some patient-reported outcomes. Let that be something that's looked at, because different facilities with the same company are not necessarily going to have the same skill level. There's a shortage of nurses. And so I'm going to be real clear. It's a tough job for everybody. Right. So I'm not going to sit here and because I was at a DaVita facility and I was treated very nice, but that was a lot of me. And everybody's not going to be that way. Tough job. Right. We talk with them, but from a policy perspective, we want to make certain that they're trained to be able to de-escalate and give that patient the benefit of the doubt, even though they may not want to. Because, like you said, you don't have your dialysis. I always tell people, you don't have to go. You're just going to die. Really? I say, yeah, really. It may take a little while. Some can live longer than others. But, again, we're going to get a lot of different opinions here. People have had a lot of different experiences. And this month is the 20th year of my transplant. I remember my first day on dialysis like it was yesterday. And I know some things that I had to go through that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. So great for you to convene this group here. And I'll give it back to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Larry, looked like we lost you for a second. My next question was for Larry. So I'll move on to Mitzi. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hey, welcome, and thank you for that. Oh, we lost Larry. So hopefully he'll sign back on. Wait a minute. Let me just find my question for you, Missy. Here we go. So, Mitzi, you're still fighting. You're still dealing with being blacklisted and receiving treatment in the hospitals. Share with us what led up to your involuntary discharge and what has that journey been like. But before you even do that, let me share this right quick. I want to share part of this video from you.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 11th, and this is my 8th critical visit of 2026. So I came in yesterday afternoon. Long story short, there was a whole thing that happened in the ED. long story short, I guess, I was told that, I just have to pause because there's so much that transpired. But I was told that I would have dialysis in the morning. And I remember thinking then, so y'all gonna let me sit here all night feeling like this? Dang, I should have just went home. Because once I got to the room they had me in, you know, I just wanted some crackers and a cup of hot tea. And they told me they didn't have any tea. And the crackers were no-go too. Because they didn't have any. Plus we always asked to put me on a regular diet every time I come in. And 9 times out of 10 they do. So this was no different. But at the end of the day, this morning came along and I'd asked the nurse last night a couple times to please let me know what time I'm scheduled for dialysis so I can make sure I get the opportunity to put my cream on an hour before treatment. Nurse told me, yeah, he would do that. And then he said, you're not on the list, the schedule for the morning. And I remember thinking, wow. And I said, I'm not. And he said, no. He said, the chances are they put the schedule out before you got over here.
I can't
Okay.
hear.
All right. Okay. So with us watching that, and like I said, you had mentioned you was going to your treatment facility for 6 years before this happened. What led up to this for these inconsistent treatments?
Okay, I just so you know, I couldn't hear the video, but what led up to it, when I first got on dialysis, I was pretty much thrown into it, is what I would call it, meaning I was given options on access type and, you know, but I wasn't given options on facilities. So I only was given a date, a date, which shift I wanted to be on. That was it, in proximity to my home. They sent me to a center that was like 7-8 miles away from my house when there was one 1.2 miles away, but it was a different company. So I go to the facility and I was onboarded with excellence. And when I say that, that nurse who is now a clinical manager, she told me what they should not be doing and what they should do. That's the only measurement I had. I had no other measurement. So my journey started right there.
This number I can text.
What led to it was my onboarding. For example,
I
think one of the major, I don't know who that is talking, but one of the major things that was happening was the changing of gloves. I would literally, and I had a catheter at the time. I had a catheter for 6.5 months. And I wore a mask the whole time. So when COVID came along, I was still masked up. But they wouldn't change gloves. They would go touch somebody, touch the machine, and then come to me. And I would say, could you please do me a favor and change your gloves? That started a little agitation with some of the staff, not all. More so, it became things of hygiene. You just drop those needles on the ground. I don't care if they're in the package. Please do not pick that up and put this on this alleged sterile tray. It was things of that nature. Then it became things that were just, unsafe. There was for example, they had a PCT that I guess she just thought that she could talk to you any kind of way and you were to listen and do as she said. And I recall one day I had been put on by someone else and she just had a really, really nasty attitude. And I remember asking someone else, I remember asking for the charge nurse. And then I asked the charge nurse, because she wasn't my PCT that day, if someone else could remove my needles. Charge nurse says yes. 10 minutes later, the PCT comes back and she goes, ain't nobody removing your needles but me. And I remember sitting there like, oh my God. And, she just went in like, you will do as I say. And I just thought, okay, I don't know what this is, but this is not for me. I made a complaint to the clinical manager. Clinical manager looked into it. The facility that I was in is one of the largest in Raleigh. There's 4 bays. The first bay being the contamination bay. It goes 4, 3, 2, 1. I was in bay 1. At the time, I'm sorry, I was in bay 2. What that clinical manager did at that time was she ended up just completely not having her schedule for me. That was it. Because that is a no-go. When I had my access put in, my graft put in, the surgeon told me, you guard this with your life because it is your lifeline. If you don't like the way they look or smell, do not allow them to cannulate you. I mean, that's how serious it was. And that's how serious I took it. I always gauged off of attitude. I mean, were you pleasant? Because if you couldn't be pleasant to me, then, maybe no. And then I would listen to what other people would say. That carried a lot of weight, being newly in dialysis. But those type of things ended up while I was there in those 6.5 years, there were 2 clinical managers, and the last one was the FA. The first clinical manager, the things that I actually reported they were legit things. Now, things that got reported to the state, there were some substantiated things and some not. And like I told the state, how can you ever substantiate that? You don't have a key. They let you in. We know when you guys are there because they go into the show mode. They go from having maybe, this is, for example, maybe 10 staff members to now 16. They go from people who just don't wear PPE. Now everybody got PPE on. So, it was always like, okay, I get it. And some things were substantiated and some things were not. So I became the individual that by the time the second clinical manager came in, to this day, I still have much respect for her. She actually, she ran the place like she was in the chair or one of her family members, and you could tell. But it was overwhelming because this was a place that had 1 charge nurse. They needed like 2. They could have doubled everything. That's how much workload there were and patients there were, and it was exhausting to actually watch some of the good staff members get work the way that they work. There was one staff member, I used to joke with her and say, one of these days I know I'm going to pull up in the parking lot and see you washing the windows too. And she would just laugh because she did everything there. So we get this now, mind you, I've at this point, by the second clinical manager, I've been in touch with the regional vice president. Talked with the regional vice president at the time. There seemed to be some changes. I saw some changes. And there was one thing that I did that I think probably got their attention is I told them on Saturdays, the place is like a zoo around here. You walk in and the staff is playing blasted music. And this is at 5 something in the morning and different genres. And, and it's like a club up in here, depending on which bay you're in. And it's absolutely exhausting for someone like myself. I like the first flight out because it's quiet. You get greeted, you go sit down. I'm in California. I'm happy. That's it. I have never gone to a cardiology appointment or a nephrology appointment, anything like that. And it's like the club back in the day. It was absolutely appalling. And this is where I'm to get my life-saving treatment. Now, there are some patients where that might work for them. It just didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. So those kind of things, what I ended up doing, because I kept telling the clinical manager, why don't you just show up on a Saturday? This is exhausting. They're letting alarms just alarm. There's 4 or 5 of them around the computer looking at what trip they going on and what they're going to buy. And, I am in a one-way communication state. What that means is this. If I'm part of the conversation and you're in North Carolina, I don't have to tell you that I'm videotaping or recording. Now, as it pertains to the facilities and the hospitals and all of that, yes, it's against their policy for you not to record and video, but it is not against the law. Look it up. So I had been telling them and no one had been doing anything, and I was sick of it. I was cramping. I was not all anxiety. Didn't even realize it. It was just festering. And so one Saturday, it was absolutely ridiculous. I took my iPad, which I already had, and I just pressed record because I was interested to see how long they were going to stay there this time. That clip got sent to the vice president. I was then told, oh, okay, well, we're going to let the facility, the clinical manager know, but yeah, it is against our policy to record, and you sign that. And I said, I understand. I said, but it's also it's a violation of my patient rights and responsibilities to not have an environment that's calm while I receive my treatment. And no one is believing me with this, you know. For some reason, seeing is believing, hearing is believing, but me just telling you in an email or talking to you, you don't believe me. And I really did feel like at this point in time, 2-3 years at this point, that the center was just into containment. So contacting their complaint line was just so they could see, is this a real legal issue? I mean, can we fix it? Do we even need to, or whatever? So moving along, we are now at the and there were all other kinds of incidents, and you're right, a part 2 would definitely help, you know, explain a lot more from my situation for sure. Now, because it's important for me to say this. Not once was I on any behavioral contract. Not once did anybody ever come to me and say, you know, we think you might have mental issues and you might need to see somebody. Not once. It was, I have a plethora of emails between myself, the regional vice president, the DO, the FO. I put everybody on CC because the FA, when they finally got an FA that was new to dialysis, new, but she used to work for the state, which I thought was interesting. Found that out not too long ago. She comes on board, and I remember telling her, because they brought her around, and you know, she introduced place. And I told her, I said, I don't know if they told you or not, but they are throwing you into the fire. And if I were you, I would take a course, the PCT course, above and beyond anything, so you can know exactly what's supposed to be done, so you will then know when they haven't done what they're supposed to do. Because at this point, okay, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Let me stop it right there. Let me bring Larry up because he just came back on, and I'll be back to you. Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Larry, you won. You fought back legally against DaVita and won access to consistent treatment. Can you briefly walk us through what that process was like?
I was the facility I was going to was owned by a doctor. I started in 1998, and then 2000. Well, right before then, when I first went in, you know, you had to sign a form about reuse because they was using reuse dialyzer. I didn't know much about it. Then I started doing research on it, and I figured out what it was. I've seen dialyzer. It's a filter, okay. And then I worked in a chemical company. I realized that you cannot clean a filter out 100%. But they was cleaning them out up to 25 to 30 times. And then you sign on a line on on a sheet, you know, when you come in, that you sign off that you may get the wrong dialyzer, you may get a dialyzer with chemicals in it, or you may get one that causes infection. But you sign it off that you agreed to that. And I didn't like that. So I went back and I said, I don't want reuse no more. Then I looked, researched it. Insurance, Medicare and insurance paid for everybody to get a brand new one. And what they was doing, washing them out and get paid for a brand new one. This went on, and then when DaVita came in, they noticed I wasn't getting a reuse. And they started harassing me every day. Why you won't get a reuse? I said, I don't want a reuse. So they kept on doing it every day, every day, every day. And just starting little stuff, you know, with me. And then eventually they started doing stuff to me, you know, just, you know, kind of being real, kind of had a nasty attitude toward me. And then one day they used the wrong needles on me. And it created a big hole in my arm. What they used was buttonhole needles, which one's supposed to be using in that process, especially on me. And I had a big knot, and it got infected. I went to the hospital. They had to do emergency surgery on it. And went back, and they said, oh, well, it was a batch of done needles. I said, okay. I said, let's don't let it happen. I didn't know no better. And I done research on it, and they said, well, in the process of making needles, you can have some that have a bad dull tip to it. So I let it go. The next month, they done the same thing to me again. Done it again with one of them needles. That time, I was just screaming out, hollering, and the nurse is a technician there. She was going to school to be a nurse. And she said, Mr. Hall, I'm so sorry. I said, you in pain, a lot of pain. I said, yeah. She said, I think they used a buttonhole needle on you. I said, what you mean by buttonhole needle? And she said, wait a minute, it's one in the trash can, the pack that they used in the trash can. She picked it up and gave it to me, and it had a buttonhole needle. So I said, please go get me another one. And I got it, I put it in file. Took it and put it in my bag. And then I started doing research on it, and I found out they weren't supposed to do that. And I called my doctor when I went to the hospital and told them what they done this time. And but after that, then the Vita started, even when I came back, they started doing all kinds of things to me. Meds I was supposed to get, I wasn't getting. Meds I was supposed to get, I was getting. And just all kinds of stuff like that. Just irritate me, and then harassing me, telling me when I go somewhere else, get treatment and all this stuff, and just harassing me. Eventually, I got to the point that I could be asleep, and they'll wake me up and start messing with me. Why don't you just go somewhere else? Just want me to argue, and I wouldn't argue. Eventually, wrote me up a behavior. Wrote a behavior form up on me. And I'll sleep, and they woke. In the middle, before then, they harassed me so hard. I made a T-shirt, and I had written on, "Please do not disturb me unless it's for medical reasons." And I had a little sign on my bag, the same thing. They came back and they wrote a behavior contract out on me, and woke me up and gave it to me. And everybody was standing around, all the medical people standing around, and gave me a message and had in there that, that what I was doing, and I shouldn't be doing that. And I said, only thing I want to do is get my treatment and leave. That's all. And it's just, and then everything kept going. Then I end up, every time they done something to me, I call the state, and the state will come and investigate. They'll write them up. And that's happened about 4 or 5 times. And then eventually got so mad at me because they knew I was bringing a lawsuit on them. I finally got an attorney to bring a lawsuit on them. They threw me out. And by law, they're supposed to give me a 30-day notice. I don't think they gave me 3 days. And they had the police there and everything. And they sent me a federal special letter, denied me treatment. They sent one to my lawyer, and sent one to my doctor. And I couldn't get treatment. I had to go to the ER the next day to get treatment and talk to my doctor to get me set up. And after that, and then, later on I went to court. Now, Medicare done a study, done a research, and found out, because they had in one of the reports that they felt, in the behavior contract, they had that they felt threatened by me. But when Medicare, CMS, Medicare, state done a study, done a research, and done everything, they put in, they never seen anything I done wrong. I have it with nothing documented that I threatened anybody, cussed anybody, or anything. And then I went to court, and about the needles, they tried to cover that up, but we went to court, and I won the case. And it wasn't about money; it's about me living. Because as of the day, I've been on dialysis 27 years, but I've been out of the DaVita. I've been out of DaVita for 16 years right now. 16 years.
All right, let's take a look at video. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's take a look at this one video, partial video, and go from there.
Why y'all doing this to me? Stop! Y'all hurting me! Y'all hurting me! Y'all hurting me! Stop! Help! They hurting me! Help! They hurting me!
Let somebody stop. Let it go. Let somebody go. Let me go. Somebody stop. Let me go.
Electronic devices, and I gave them my electronic devices right here. As you can see, the security guard is opening up the box right now to give me my electronic device, my cell phone. Is you giving me my phone?
Oh, this is?
Yeah, that is mine. My phone is in here. Yes. Yes. No. You give it to me now. You give it because this is my proof. No.
Yeah, I know.
No, let me show them the proof. No, open this real quick. Let me show them the proof.
It's right here.
Can I show them the proof, brother?
Listen, it's a phone in the box. That's the proof.
That is the proof, right? What he say? It's a phone in the box. That's my phone in the box that they asked me to give them, and I gave it to them. And that lady, I don't know what that lady name is over there, but she came over there accusing me, telling me, we need everything. And, ooh. I gave them the phone already. This is the box in question right here. Right? This is the box, right? That's the box. Gave them the box. They still go tell me I can't get my dialysis. I can't get my dialysis.
Then we can get this.
I'm finna wait till the ambulance get here. I'm finna wait till the ambulance get here. I'm finna wait. The ambulance is coming. They just told me. They just said they on their way.
Police on their way.
The ambulance just told me they on their way.
You can open this one in 20 days.
Yeah.
Right. The ambulance just told me they on their way. The ambulance just told me they on their way. They can't treat people like this. They can't treat people like this. I came to get my dialysis treatment, and my leg is hurt right now. I just feel they just told me that, you know, it was fluid on my leg, you know, and I need some help. I need some help. I was a security guard for 3.5 years as well. I still got my old security hat. So I know what security supposed to do and what they not supposed to do, you know. So this is my proof. This is my protection. You understand? Because I verbally told them that my leg is hurt and I can't walk right now. So I'm waiting on the ambulance to come pick me up.
Right here.
Yes. So I'm waiting on the ambulance.
Tell them you drunk at the same time and you being disrespectful as well.
No, I'm not being disrespectful.
Yes, you just called the lady a old bitch, man.
Called her a bitch.
Yes, you did.
When I call her a bitch, man, don't lie on me, man. I'm a child of God, bro,
right.
and I got a Bible. I ain't called no woman no bitch.
Whatever,
so you trying to lie on me, bro?
I don't care about you pointing.
No, but you trying to lie on me though. Why you lying on me though?
Hey man, just come on.
Just don't lie on me, man. And I told you my leg is hurt. I'm not getting in nothing because my leg is hurt. So you can't force me to move, and if I just told you my leg is hurt.
That's fine. When the police question you, it's gonna be worse.
Okay, well let them police do it. Let the police do it. I'll wait for them.
Y'all transferring him somewhere else? Because I don't want to have no more problems after this. Especially when
The ambulance is coming.
Okay.
So, got the cell phone.
It's the third time having a problem with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've been up here disrespectful every time you come. And you
All right,
drunk.
brother. All right, brother. I'm not drunk.
Yes, you is.
All right, whatever. That's your opinion.
I smell it on your
Okay, you
breath,
can
bro.
smell whatever. Smell your upper lip.
You lucky, bro.
I ain't lucky shit, nigga. Tough ass nigga. Hey!
You cut it on.
Hey!
You really want it.
I really shit, nigga. I don't know who the fuck you think you intimidated or scared.
Ain't nobody trying.
No, that's what he's trying to do. That's what he's trying to do.
You sure?
You already order food or you want to get food? You hungry?
That's a shame. Did you lose your...
All right. I'm sorry. You probably didn't hear me. This for you, Dr. Chidima. What role should a nephrologist play before discharge happens?
Well, I guess it depends on the situation. Um, if there is no immediate danger and there is a concern that um, there is a mental health issue that can be addressed non-emergently, then perhaps working with the patient's PCPA and having the patient referred to a mental health specialist would be beneficial. Or some other medical issue that could be contributing to what is going on, then that needs to be evaluated. It should be evaluated. If in this case the nephrologist is the medical director, obviously what Johnny was saying earlier about all the steps that need to be taken, coming up with a behavioral contract and all of that, they have to be involved. But assuming not talking about any of the legal matters, I think one of the things is as you're assessing the patient, obviously listen to the patient, both what they're saying and what they're not saying, and see what if there is anything here that is medical that should be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Joni, let me ask you, do you feel that nurses are given enough tools, training, and support to de-escalate problems before discharge happens, like what you just seen in this video with Brother Bernard? Can you hear me, Joni? You might have to sign off and sign back on. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. You wasn't on the stage.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
I was gonna say, like, I worked as a dialysis nurse for 9 years before I became a provider. And I guess if you pay attention to the LMS videos, you know, the modules when you get hired, if you pay attention to it, because of the OSHA videos, it talks about workplace violence between patients, staff and staff, patients and staff, patients and patients. It talks about these things. Well, they're so long and drawn out. The truth is, they're the same thing each year. So if you have all the tests, you just answer them and you don't even have to watch the videos. Well, no one actually comes in and reinforces that, right? No, there is no, let's have a class on this. You know, let's make sure, let's do how we do mock codes. Like, you know, for a code, we can do like a mock situation. That would be good, but we don't have that. In our area, I can say in any of the other states that I've worked in on this side, we don't have that. And I feel like if we did, I'll say it like this. I feel like you got to be careful on who you hire for this population.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody don't have a heart. You either love dialysis or you hate it. And just because you have the ability to do so, that don't mean that you qualify to do so. You know, like it's just one a special specialty. And you have to understand, like, there are mornings where I used to get up 2:30 in the morning to be to work by 4 o'clock. I'm married. I have children. You know, they have school. I was still a student going back to further my education. You know, you got bills, you know, grocery high, everything high, right? You got stressors, you know, and then you don't go to bed till like 9 or 10 because you got to put your family to bed, and you got to make sure that you take a moment to decompress too. So then now your alarm goes off at 2:30 in the morning, and you got to get up and you got to get yourself together. You don't have time to eat breakfast or anything, really, because you're really not even hungry that time of morning. Then you got to be in the clinic, and you got to get it prepared for all of your special patients that are coming in. Do you think that everybody really has that mindset? Because you walk into clinics, me, I'm sociable. I talk anytime. It don't matter if night, day. If I fall asleep on you, then you know I'm tired. But I would go in the clinics and they'd be like, please don't come in here with the talking, the staff. I don't want to hear it. It's too early in the morning. Well, I'm only asking you, like, what bay are you in and what machines do you have? Like, I can help you string them. You know, I'm only asking you about the day. You know, they already come in disgruntled because they're tired. Then your patients come in, right? And they are, some still in denial. Some been doing this a long time. They probably cramped the last treatment, was sick at home between treatments. They have family issues or no support at all. The insurance is calling. They receiving the bills in the mail. They're not getting their medications. Their ride didn't pick them up. They lost their transportation. Somebody said something wrong in the lobby. The door wasn't open when they pulled up. So they're mad that the door was still locked. You know, they don't want the nurse that they had the other day. And we're the only people in the building. They don't want this person to stick them. They don't want this person by their machine. So you take the staff stresses and you take the patient stresses and you put it together and kabam. Who taught you how to de-escalate that? Nobody. Because that's like life. That's life. So it's not always the patients, it's not always the staff, you know, and I don't think that we are prepared for that. But I also feel like there was a patient one time, he cursed me out and he lifted his hand at me and it scared me because I'm not a confrontational, like, I'm not that kind of person. But I was like, this man gonna hit me. And it was like, you got a right to send him home. And I'm like, well, how you gonna get his treatment? It was like, yeah, but if he hits you, like, what you gonna do? It happens. Everybody has to take accountability for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Patients got to know how to de-escalate themselves, and staff need to learn how to de-escalate themselves too, because everybody is human across the board, in my opinion. So when you try to talk to somebody who just got off the phone with somebody repossessing a car, or the wife is not talking to them, she cheating on them, or the kids not being there, how are you going to help them? They don't want to hear it. So, and I'm only saying this from, you know, situations that I've experienced. I'm all for patients. I love my patients. I take care of my patients. But when you get these kind of patients, there is really nothing to say. And then you try and you go get somebody who they more familiar with, or somebody that they talk to on the outside dialysis, and come and talk to them, and then they go off on them too. Yeah, you might have to leave the day and come back another day. You know, that's the way that we're taught to handle that. That's the way we're taught to, you know, de-escalate a situation and call the boss and be like, hey, we had to send such and such out because they were over the top when they came in. They was disrespectful. They were cursing us out, slamming things out, you know. But that goes back to knowing your patient.
Right.
If you know that this patient is never like that, give them a minute. I'll walk off. Give you a second. Maybe you're going to calm down. But you got some staff that's their life at home too. So what they say, they bout it. So you're going to get rowdy with me, I'm going to get rowdy with you. That's unprofessional. But it's the reality.
Right. Dr. Chidima, from a medical standpoint, how dangerous is it when the patient loses access to dialysis care?
So, obviously, anyone who's been on dialysis knows the answer to this question, or is close to someone who is on dialysis. I'm not going to go into a whole kidney lecture, but you know, I make those videos where I talk about the things that the kidneys do, so that you know that when you lose your kidney function, these are the things you're losing. There are more long-term effects, and then there are more short-term effects. The short-term effect will be that your electrolytes will not be well controlled, and some of those are dangerous. You know, your phosphorus can go sky high, but that's really not going to kill anyone. But if your potassium does the same thing, that becomes a problem. Because when potassium is too high, it can stop the heart. Then there is sodium, even because when you're not making urine, any water you drink just kind of dilutes your body's sodium. And if that goes too low, let's say by some miracle you're able to keep your potassium down, but your sodium goes too low, that also becomes a problem. If you cannot urinate at all, that also becomes a problem because everything you eat and drink, all that fluid remains in your body and then, goes to your lungs, and now you have shortness of breath. Now, in 1986, I believe that's when this was signed into law, EMTALA, which is where when you go to the emergency room, they have to provide you with whatever emergency service you need. This is the loophole where people will go to the emergency room to get dialysis after being discharged from their dialysis unit. The problem with that is that end-stage kidney disease care is not just about being on the machine and getting your blood cleaned. When your kidneys are not working, your kidneys at baseline, they're making hormone that tells your bone marrow to make blood. When your kidneys are not working, you need that hormone as an injection. You lose a lot of blood as a dialysis patient. You become iron deficient. The iron you have in your body is not working so well because you are in a constant inflammatory state. So a lot of dialysis patients get a lot of iron. When your kidneys are working, your kidneys activate vitamin D, which helps you absorb calcium. When your kidneys are not working, you cannot activate vitamin D. So you have to get activated vitamin D either as an injection or they give you the medication when you're in dialysis. And then if, say, your parathyroid hormone is too high, your phosphorus is too high, and you need to take a medication that lowers your phosphorus or that suppresses your PTH. A lot of times that medication is given in your dialysis unit because it comes as part of the bundle for your dialysis payment from Medicare, and so on and so forth. So when you go to the emergency room and you get emergency dialysis, everything else is not included. They care for your anemia, they care for your high phosphorus, they care for your low calcium, because sometimes that's what the problem is. They care for your low activated vitamin D and so on and so forth. So that's where the problem is, both long-term, short-term, and long-term. It can become a problem medically.
Wow. Richard,
Yes, sir.
what rights do patients often not know they have?
Well, I'll tell you, most patients don't know their rights. And even if they do, and I think Mitzi and Larry articulated what they did, and they were in the right. CDC got involved, and one of the things that they wanted to do was decrease infections. And when you have your gloves on and you go to pick something up or you go to another patient, you need to change those gloves. Now, these techs are under tremendous pressure to do things on time, and there's a lot of things going on. And sometimes they forget about it. They don't want to do it. If a patient speaks up and they're taught to speak up, then there will be retaliation. To me, it sounded like there was a lot of retaliation going on between my colleagues here. That's why you do have the facilities, the network, but nothing's perfect. And these people, we used to joke, you worked at McDonald's and then 3 weeks later you got some training and you're working in a dialysis facility. That's changed. They did increase the standards, and we have been to tech conferences and offer them awards because techs are important. But again, the patients have the right. If you read, and who's going to read the conditions of coverage? That's like reading an insurance policy. But you do have the rights. For example, when you get discharged, that's supposed to be signed off by your doctor, the facility doctor, the 30-day notice. Gentleman earlier told us that he didn't have that type of notice. There's a number of things, and somebody coming in, all the things that Johnny articulated, they're not in a good mood. Somebody missed my vein one time and infiltrated. I says, "You missed, will you please take the needle out?" She said, "I don't see anything." Now, I'm thinking to myself what the brothers who have been having this difficulty at the facilities calling them all types of things. And all of a sudden, she sees it blows up. but my dialysis is done then. Now, I went to the head person there. I'm not trying to get them in trouble, but they got to listen to me or give me somebody else. I know my body and I can feel it, and they have to wait to see it. So it's those types of things. I think you were telling me there's a standard. You don't stick a patient but so many times. Then on top of that, guess what? These patients are in pain and discomfort. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm a business guy, and it's a business model. You know, at one time, most of the techs at the dialysis facility were nurses. Well, we had to cut that back because, again, we had to deal with that bottom line. I think Larry mentioned reuse. That's inconceivable. They asked me if I wanted it back when I was. I said, no, I won't have it. Nope. Because I know you. Somebody said, well, that's only a 1 in 400,000 chance. I said, well, what if you're that one? So the point is, Steve, is that patients do have right. I'm going to say this. I think if we look at some resolution, I'm with AAKP. We train, we educate people. There's a lot of other good organizations. You got AKF, you got NKF, but AAKP, we're making rules and we're doing things because we sat in a chair and we've had to go through some of those things. So, whether you join, we have the policy conference where we talk about the same things we're talking about here, what your remedies are. And the most dangerous thing now is an educated patient. That's they said, Rich, how do you know all of that? Where are you getting that proprietary information? I said, I know when you guys don't know something. And you asked me whether or not I understand. I can look at my lab reports and read it. The information right there. So you're not going to take that much fluid off me. They take too much fluid. That's very painful. So patients have a lot of rights, but I'm going to tell you, Steve, when you're in discomfort, when you're in pain, when you're depressed, when you have anxiety, it's difficult to negotiate all those things that are going along there. And that's why I know for me, it's helpful to talk with other folks who may be experiencing some of the same things and come up proactively. I'll never forget Dr. Patel from CDC. She spearheaded this program. We started with her, and they would bring that light there and show it around the facility, and you could see the germs just pop up. And the same thing with the gloves. So the patient has that right. And I talk about infections because, number one, if you have to go to the hospital for infection, that's just not good for you when it can be avoided. So patients have a number of rights. Many times people just don't know everything. And you have to be as educated as you can so you can protect yourself. Befriend the tech. I've had some techs, they didn't have high rank, but they were very knowledgeable. And when Joni explained, they could explain that to me. So you don't let them do reuse. Don't let them get started. That's what tech told me.
Right.
So, Steve, great session tonight. We need to demand better. I think dialysis is great because it's life-saving, but training, I've always said that you're giving people money to educate, but are they being educated?
Right. Wow. That's true. Mitzi, let me ask you, were you given a warning or a chance to correct the problem or issue before being removed from your center?
No, as I said earlier, Steve, I was never given any incident, any behavioral contract. As a matter of fact, when I was discharged, I mean, I know we're on limited time, but I think it's important to know the context before this all happened. I think everything came to a head February 18th for me. When I came, the night before, I wasn't feeling well. I called the nephrologist and said, hey, I think I'm going to go to the ED tonight because I'm really not feeling well. And all he wanted to know was, are you short of breath? I said, no, but my chest is really tight and I feel ill. And he said, well, I just need you to try to get treatment. He said, I believe if once you get treatment tomorrow, you'll feel better. I said, okay, fair enough. Tomorrow was like maybe another 12 hours away. I fared it through. I went into the center. I got there. It was a chair time. It was a chair time change. So it was that going on that day. So my chair time had been delayed by 20 minutes. An anchored chair was moved 20 minutes back. So at any rate, I get there. And when I get there, I'm not feeling well. I get into the center and I'm having difficulty breathing, not shortness of breath. There's a huge difference, like the difference between pain and discomfort. When you've had shortness of breath, you know what it is. I was having difficulty breathing. I ended up doing something I normally didn't do. I normally stood by my chair, didn't sit down. I sat down. All of a sudden, there was another patient there, the first patient. So it was just two of us in the lobby. The nurse comes out. I then say to the nurse, I'm having difficulty breathing. Would it be okay if I come back? Because in my mind, I thought I needed some oxygen. And I've seen people in all these years come in, have a problem. They either bring the oxygen to them or take them to the oxygen. The nurse told me, it's not your time. She and the other patient, she didn't come within 10, 15 feet of me, didn't assess me, asked me no questions, and left me. I just told her one of my ABCs was obstructed or I had a problem with it, and I was just left there. So I remember thinking, oh my God. And that's what that was my nurse, one of my worst nightmares, is that I was going to come in there, have a problem, and they would do just that and just tell my family her heart gave out. So I sat there for a minute. Another patient came in. A few minutes later, one of the social workers, who is actually a member of management, she comes out. She then says, she asks for the patient, him. She goes over, she talks to him. I said nothing. She then turns to me, says my name, and I said, yes. I said, I'm having difficulty breathing. I just told the nurse, and I'm still having it. She told me, I know, and left. Didn't come, didn't ask for, if they'd asked me for EMS, I would say yes. I'm a woman of faith. I remember thinking, you won't be able to make it to the car. Holy Spirit told me, get your stuff, you're going to make it. I made it to the car. I drove to the hospital. I was hospitalized for 3 days. I contacted everybody and made a complaint. I have no idea. The only thing that ended up happening that I know of is that the nursing board said they found no fault. And here in North Carolina, allegedly, when you make a complaint against a nurse, it ultimately goes to a board of attorneys. They look at it and they see if there's any violation. They found no violation whatsoever. So at that point, that was February 18th. I spent 3 days in the hospital. I came and I was very nervous every treatment. That following Tuesday, I think it was the 25th, the social worker, another social worker came to me and asked me, oh, how you doing? And I just was like, you're not aware of what happened to me last week? You know, because I just knew that was topic of discussion, especially since the second person said, I know. That meant that they had a discussion about a patient in distress and did nothing. They didn't contact my emergency contact when I left there. They didn't contact me. It was a bunch of like, okay. So next thing you know, I start telling her, and because I asked her, did she know what happened? She was like, yeah, I know you were in the hospital. I said, you don't know how I got there? And she said, no. By the time I went through the story and I got to the second person that said, I know, she just said, well, did you contact the state? I thought that was so bizarre. In all those years, I had never had anybody come to me and ask me that, because you can make all of your complaints anonymously. So now you coming to me asking me? Well, I contacted their complaint line that day and made a complaint about that. Turns out the next thing that was February 25th. I told her the truth, like I'm telling you guys. I said, yes, I contacted the state. I contacted the state, the nursing board, y'all complaint line, and the social worker board, and trying to see who else I can contact that can listen and do something about this place. Next thing I know, I was given a involuntary discharge. Now, mind you, I had contacted the ESRD. That's what I meant to say earlier. I had been in contact with them with some of my other complaints. When I got this involuntary discharge, ESRDN was already notified. Now, what was interesting is that the individual I was working with the ESRDN, because initially they, I guess they have a nurse come in and they follow up with your stuff. It was a lot of things that company X, Y, and Z. I don't know how to word this because I just talked to iPro. I'm just going to say they needed to correct. It was some stuff that they gave and they said, here, y'all fix that type of thing. Well, this complaint that was out, nothing. They found nothing. And so The interesting thing was I was given an involuntary discharge March 20th, 2025. We had a follow-up meeting with the ESRDN scheduled for March 21st, 2025. And to my knowledge, the ESRDN network is allegedly totally against blacklisting. This is the last thing you ever want to have happen, right? Number one. Number two, I don't know how you blacklisting somebody that never had an incident. There's no documentation. You just put words in there: disruptive behavior, abusive to staff, yelling, calling names, but you won't provide not one example of any of those. And how did the ESRDN not know the temperature of the facility? And that's what I wanted to know. How did I get this discharge? I called the ESRDN. I sent it to all my providers in my chart. And I said, in the first, I didn't even know of an involuntary discharge, other than the verbiage. And I do have a question about those. Should they not have the date that everybody signed it? But at any rate, and should they not have to print their name? But anyway, I asked the ESRDN. I said, they gave me, and she goes, oh, now mind you, now I'm dealing with the regional person. They had switched me over to dealing with her, and they're like, and I'm in network 6. They were like, oh no, they gave you an involuntary discharge. They didn't even let us know. Well, I'm thinking, okay, so did my research, I found out that before that even went into play, there should have been some type of contract. There should have been some intervention with the ESRDN, with myself and the center. Now, the center claims they tried everything with me. We tried to offer her everything. Well, they only think every single time I had a complaint report, whichever, they're interchangeable. That's when the next person that came to me was like, have you ever thought about home dialysis? It was so excessive in my mind that they would just come just in general. I said, you know what? This is what you guys need to think about. If you wanted me on home dialysis, that's how you should have started me, because I wouldn't have known any different. I said, so why get me in the center, this one at that, didn't know about any other companies, and then all of a sudden when I have an issue with what y'all onboarded me about, now you want me to do home dialysis. Mm-hmm. It was year 4 when I told them, don't come to me again talking about home dialysis. It's a trigger. The answer is no, absolutely not. Go talk to your team and put people on home dialysis first, and then have them come to the center.
Right. Let me stop you here just for time's sake. I want to ask a couple of more questions to the other panels. But Larry, let me ask you, when you were going through your situation, did you feel heard, respected, and treated fairly by clinic staff? Why or why not?
The technicians, most of them treated me real nice, and some of them helped me out a lot, because back then we didn't have my chart or nothing like that. So when I needed documents before they, like flow sheets, before they put them on file, I asked them, they get it to me. And that's really what helped me out a lot too. A lot of them looked out for me. I wouldn't have never known, like one instance, I was supposed to be getting heparin, and one of the technicians said, Larry, I'm put you on today. He hadn't put me on a long time. And he said, I got you today. I said, okay. As soon as he started getting everything set up, he said, Larry, you know that I don't know when they stopped giving you heparin, but you haven't had heparin in 3 months. I said, huh? He said, yeah. I said, you sure? I said, well, let me check. He said, no, it's you started ago. So I went and called the manager, the head nurse, and she went back and they went and talked, and the administrator went and talked. And I said, I want to see my medical records. Then they put in there, they had talked to a nurse who said I said that, and they questioned her, and she said, well, I thought he said he didn't want heparin no more. I said, it's nothing documented that I said, no doctor's office or nothing. So that's when I called the state, and the state wrote them up for that too. But it was, and excuse me, I want to go back to the reuse. Even though all this started for reuse, years later, Fresenius stopped using reuse, and DaVita stopped using reuse. And it was a reason for that, It's a reason for it. And no apology or nothing, but this is where all my incidents started from, reuse. you know. And don't get me wrong, you got good techs. You got some good techs, but they really, really work them hard. You know, you got some coming in at 5:30 in the morning. It'd be about 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night before they get off. And one tech will have 4 patients. When the other patient, other crew, other side have go to break or something. So they got 8 patients. They got 8 machines, 8 patients they worried about. And it's a lot of push to them. It's like a assembly line, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And they have problems, like the other person saying that, you know, everybody have problems and everybody's pushed to the end. And dialysis patients have more problems just than being on dialysis. They diabetic, got arthritis, got all kinds of other problems going on, family problems and everything. And it's just not fair, you know. They need to have, before you put them out, just have some kind of somebody to talk to the patients and see what's going on, you know, like a rehab, you know, somebody to talk to them and see what's going on and find out if it's the patient or if it's the staff or way they're being treated, the way they're being treated. And in my case, I swear, I never cussed anybody out. I never treated nobody wrong or nothing the whole time I was there. But they was trying to push me to that, you know, and I wouldn't break. I wouldn't do it, you know.
Right. I want to show some images, and I have a question for Joni. Here one image of 84-year-old woman, or Lomax, who was involuntary discharged from her unit in Richmond, Virginia, or Henrico County. She did win her stay. However, Ms. Lomax has passed away. She was one example. There was an article written by Politics when profit-driven clinics kick non-compliant patients off dialysis. Anybody watching? Here's another article. What happens when dialysis patients are denied treatment after being involuntary discharged? And then we just showed this gentleman out of Missouri that just because he said some words, the words he said, that he had a pew and he felt like shooting up the place, but he didn't have it. And then we have just look at this one.
Hello, my name is Felicia McNair. I am on dialysis for kidney failure. I have recently been banned from all dialysis clinics due to a dispute between me and a doctor. And I am unable to go to any dialysis clinic inside of Fayetteville or outside of Fayetteville. If anybody know anything about, if you don't know anything about dialysis, you have to do it 3 days out the week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you know, every other day, in order to live and stay alive. I am currently subject to going to the ER to do my dialysis, which means that I have to wait until it's an emergency in order to do my dialysis, or be admitted every time I go into the ER. They have to admit me in order to get the dialysis, which means I will basically be living in the dialysis center. I have, before being thrown out of the dialysis center, I was trying to get home dialysis, and so that I can be able to live my life freely and do what I needed to do. I had a restaurant and I was trying to run it, and take care of my kids and everything that I needed to do. That way I had time for my life.
We can completely see this was emotional for her. Joni, in your opinion, how much of involuntary discharge is related to behavior and how much is related to poor system designs or staffing issues?
I think it really just depends on the area you in, because staffing can be short anywhere, but there are clinics that I go to often or that I've even worked at that are fully staffed. And I think you see the most grief in clinics when it's not fully staffed, because you have the burnout effect. But people also gotta, they need to come to work. They have to come to work to support their homes, to support their life. And even though they're tired and they're dragging, they still come in there. And like I said, that's a stressor that comes in. And your attitude as the staff member can cause patients to have an attitude. And then the patient attitude causes the staff to have an attitude. I feel like the percentage might be equal across the world, but around here, the discharges that I've seen, I feel like the patients were kind of picked on, kind of made to act a certain way. Kind of the word keeps leaving my mind. They were provoked. I feel like some patients were provoked. There was actually a patient in the clinic that said that he was going to shoot the place up, and he didn't have a gun either, but he was a driver. He drove himself. That doesn't mean that he didn't have the capabilities of going to get one. That doesn't mean that he didn't have one in his car. You can't trust that. That's scary. We got families too. So while I advocate heavily for patients, I advocate for staff when they're correct, when it's appropriate, you can't just, even the man in the video, I didn't really get to hear it because it was so low, but I see that he said he had a gun and he was going to shoot the place up. Sir, you know better than that. Like, at 81 years old, like, I mean, maybe not, some don't, but when you say something like that, that's taken serious. It really is. And while the last resort is discharging patients from the clinic, I agree with that being the last resort, because I worked in the acute unit and it wasn't good. Well, it wasn't like convenient for people to check into the emergency room every treatment before coming in, because they had to get checked into the emergency room. They had to get all labs drawn, and we had to readmit them every time they came. This was for like illegal, illegal, they call them the illegals. And this was also for, I had a patient that was kicked out of the clinic. He couldn't go to no clinic. And he came, he had a schedule though, but he had to get checked into the hospital every time he came. That's inconvenient, for them. But sometimes people make their bed hard and they have to lay in it, whether it be the staff or whether it be the patient. But I do feel we should have a more fair system as far as the people that judge the situations, because in this area we have a lot of petty people. So I agree, I understand what Mitzi is saying, but also to the defense of some of the staff, we got a lot of petty patients too. So everybody, we're human, and you got to think about this. Yes, it's your life-saving treatment, but you come here 3 days a week, the other people come 3 days a week. Everybody becomes like a family, because most clinics only have 2 or 3 nurses, and they only have 4 or 6 techs. It's the same people over and over and over. You really never get a chance to debrief. You never get a chance to exhale, because if you're working from 4:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and you go home and you only got 2 hours to prep for the next day because you got to get rest, if you make it to bed on time, you're running off of no fuel. And that just I really, it's a balancing act, Steve. It's unfair to the staff. It's unfair to the patients. Everybody just needs to learn how to behave, and everybody, the staff, we need to learn. Because I'm part of the team, we need to learn how to follow policy. I agree with what Mitzi said. I am guilty in the past of, oh my God, CMS is here. We got to make sure we put. Now I ain't going to you with no gloves on. I gotta have, and I'm going to change gloves. I don't believe in all of that. That's disgusting. Face shield. Sometimes I miss that because I wear glasses, and when I put my face shield on, it has a glare. But I need my glasses, so I wear the little thing on the side sometimes. Not all the time. But when CMS come in, heck, we're like, oh man, we don't have no date on the bottle for the hand sanitizer. We don't have no date on the jug where the water coming from. If the patient told them that was old water, they will believe it because it's not dated. The drawers are not locked. The medications are not in the right drawers, you know? I mean, like, there were things that were out of place, and it's still out of place, and they are playing catch up, you know, and that's not okay either. But sometimes you get too relaxed.
Gotcha. Richard, my next question is for you, but I want you to see this video.
I need to talk about something that has left me feeling scared, humiliated, and honestly blacklisted. I have end-stage renal disease. Dialysis is not optional for me. It is life-sustaining medical treatment. I've been trying to transfer to a dialysis clinic closer to home, but clinic after clinic, and apparently nephrologists, will not accept me. I've been told that individual clinics have the authority to deny patients. I've also been told there were concerns involving my TikTok and social media. But what exactly have I done? I've discussed my own health journey, my own body, my own dialysis experience. I've tried to make other patients feel less alone. I'm not claiming that I can prove there is a formal blacklist. I'm saying that after repeated denials with no clear written explanation and no meaningful appeal process, that is exactly how it feels. A patient should not have to wonder whether speaking publicly about his own medical care will prevent him from receiving care somewhere else. If there is a legitimate medical or operational reason for these denials, put it in writing. Give me a fair review. Give me a meaningful way to appeal. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for access to the treatment that keeps me alive and for the right to tell my own story without being afraid of retaliation.
Now, Richard, my question for you, what patterns or causes does AAKP see most often behind involuntary discharges?
Well, to be honest, a lot of times it's not necessarily AAKP directly, because we're working with the networks. I sat on a committee for that, representing AAKP. So I just want to be clear about that. And we talked about this. We talked about cases like that. Many times I didn't agree, but many times I could see the situation. Now, if you're on social media and you telling your story is causing negative feedback or backlash against the facility, then they are going to retaliate. They shouldn't. It's against the law, but they will. The other option is, again, and I think several of the folks here have mentioned it, in every network is not perfect either. Network 5 has like maybe 5 or 6, because these are contracts and they keep rolling over, and they've acquired more because they do a pretty good job. And there's also the state option. Different people in the state operate different ways. Now, in that case, what we would do is we're going to deal with CMS and have them try to enforce what's going on, maybe get some of that documentation. And what we can do a lot of times is go up the higher levels of the food chain and be able to talk with somebody much further up in the corporation. Because I'm telling you, these places are humongous. I mean, they're large. And when they say 0.001%, that doesn't seem like a lot. But when between two companies, you dialyze 70+% of the market, that's a big number. And that gentleman there, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, these are businesses. They if you're on insurance and you switch and go off, sometimes you can't get back on because you have to go through the process of them reviewing you. And a situation where if you're a patient that they may have some difficulties, and that could just be the nature of your body, then other places may be hesitant to take that. That's why you have to have that relationship with somebody who can more or less advocate on your behalf. You don't want it necessarily to be you because of that. And the networks are fully aware of that. The social workers are good. But now, instead of a social worker being at one unit, they may be spread over 2 or 3. Instead of having enough nurses, you just don't have enough. So as a matter of fact, there's a shortage of nurses, nephrology nurses, I'll say, because I don't think anyone goes to school to get a degree in nursing that would take them to work in nephrology. They always go there through some circuitous route where they have other experiences, and then they come there. You nurses, speak up, because I'm not a nurse. I don't know. That's just my observation and conversations. But again, Steve, we do advocate. We want to know what's going on inside of that facility. We'll have people that will talk to us. We try to keep it off the record and make certain that we can get the patients taken care of, because many people have no concept. Larry, you've been on dialysis for such a long time. My mentor was on for 31 years. He had 2 transplants, and his body wouldn't accept it. And he just taught me a lot. I'm very beholden to him, and educated me about the system at an early stage. So I think your best defense is to be as educated as possible, to make some connections. Now, I'm saying this in retrospect, Steve, because when I was there, that's not how I was thinking, because of everything that I'm going through. And I was running the business on boards and still working. But I do think collectively here, we have enough knowledge and experiences to be able to channel that in some direction. And I'm not going to put down what anybody else is doing. I just know what we did as an organization and continue to do. You know, one of our mantras is government determinants of health, because there are many things within the government that get in the way of you getting your proper treatment. And dialysis facilities have a lot of leverage. So again, got to know your rights, got to exercise them. I think you have to get engaged with some organization that can advocate on your behalf. And you have to be strategic, because it is going to be, I've been teaching college for like years, since the 80s. And sometimes you have a student that you just don't like. And I've had to check myself many times. I've had to go back and apologize when I was wrong. Same thing. I think the texts are pretty cool in most cases. But there are other people that should be involved. And sometimes the system just, I think education is a big issue. And it's hard sometimes. It's just real tough. So I don't want to go on, but I'm going to recommend that you do get engaged, even if you're on dialysis. You know, take the time, because you can do a lot of things online, virtually. September 11th through defense. And I'm not Pollyannish here, but you got to do what you got to do to survive. And I would even think about a backup place. When I was at DaVita, they were in what I call a Pac-Man stage. They were buying up all these other smaller dialysis facilities. Wanted to go home to Connecticut. Well, we can't locate any place, so you can't go. 2 days later, I found a place, here's the information that you asked me to get, I'm going. Because I did it. They weren't. We don't care about him going home. So I think you got to do what you can to advocate for yourself. And people here sound like they have been doing that. And it's not an unfair world. And I tell people that money, heparin is expensive, and the other medications. So reuse cost.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's right.
I'm gonna turn it back to you, Steve. But we'll do what we can to work with people. And there are other organizations, but we just happen to be very large experience and can talk with people at higher levels, sometimes behind closed doors that others can't. We don't make a lot of noise about it because that's not effective. We're more interested in being effective and getting.
Gotcha. Dr. Chidinma, how does poor... I'm sorry? What happened, Richard?
No, I said we have I just said we have a cheerful and informed group with us here tonight. I was just complimenting you.
Yeah. We about to wrap it up. But Dr. Chidinma, how does poor communication between staff and patients contribute to these situations?
Well, so I think basically everything that Johnny has said, Johnny was the one who said earlier that sometimes the patient has had a bad day or something like that. I forgot how she put it, but just like with any relationship, whether it's poor communication because the avenues to communicate appropriately, the giving the patient resources to be able to communicate appropriately, the education actually also just being informed enough to be able to articulate and communicate what a particular problem is instead of letting it fester and become something that turns into frustration. That's one thing. But also when you say when you're running, whether it's an organization or you are the head of a family or whatever it is, and you say something like, well, here we listen to all your complaints. Well, okay, but if there is if you don't foster an environment where that actually happens, then you're just saying it. So a breakdown in communication in whatever way it occurs, whether it's due to the patient not being able to verbalize, whether it's because the staff, they're too short-staffed, they cannot really spend one time with someone to understand what complaints they may have, what concerns they may have, whether it's all staff manners and whatever it is. If we're not communicating appropriately, then we see how emotions can then take over. And when emotions can take over, things get said. Behaviors exhibit, we exhibit behaviors in ways that that may not be considered appropriate. We are not able to de-escalate when we're supposed to de-escalate and things like that. And that will increase misunderstanding and make it more likely for people to end up in a situation like this.
Interesting. Hey, Joni, what could clinics do differently to support both staff safety and patient dignity?
I think that they can put the proper management in place that knows how to stay neutral. Meaning like don't make friends with the staff in a way that the lines are blurred and you don't know how to stay within a protocol or policy. I think that, if someone is constantly a problem in your clinic, and I'm talking about staff at this time, constantly a problem, call outs, late, sleeping on the job, it happens. Leaving to get their nails and hair done, it happens. Getting their hair done in the break room, it happens. Going grocery shopping on your clock, it happens. The patients are reporting them for talking any kind of way they want to talk to them, it happens. And you allow that to come in and infiltrate your clinic. One bad apple can spoil the bunch, right? So you got to learn how to keep professional boundaries. I feel like people would appreciate their jobs more and want to work for a company more that had respect for professional boundaries. It's just been really blurred, in our renal world. In dialysis, it's really like the lines are crossed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And the other thing that I often think about, what if we didn't start at 5:00 in the morning? What if we gave the opportunity for people to rest and come in like a regular job, 7, 8:00? What if we didn't mess up their normal rhythm of sleep? The patients too. Patients had 4:45 a.m. chairs. You got to get up that time of morning and ride with a stranger. If you have to catch transportation, or your person overslept and they couldn't bring you, so you missed your treatment. Now you got to go through all the rescheduling. What if we had normal hours of operation where you can decrease the cortisol level in some people? I'm saying, like, I try to think of the science behind it because you can't fix people. What could the companies do to better accommodate professionalism, or people for professionalism to remain? Something has happened somewhere where it's okay for the lines to be blurred. I've had a tech put her hand in my face, tell me to shut up, call me a little girl. I'm saying, like, I've had LPN to curse me out while she's putting a catheter. She's doing the, care for a patient. I'm the RN at that time on the floor, so I'm responsible for all patients, because in South Carolina, LPNs are not allowed to assess. So the RN is responsible for all 20 patients. The only thing the LPN can do is give the medication. She can't even use the stethoscope. She can't even put the assessment in and sign it. So I'm responsible for all 20 on both shifts. That's 40 patients.
Mm-hmm.
How overwhelming is that when you have someone that's insubordinate? Not meaning like you got to humble down to me, but we got to respect protocol. Like we gotta respect proper authority. Like, we have to respect management. The techs have to respect. They have to get orders from the nurses, right? Down here, LPNs have to take orders from the RNs too. We delegate.
Mm-hmm.
But when people don't respect professionalism and boundaries, professional boundaries, everybody says, "Oh, we all the same. You don't do no more than me. You don't." Yeah, but I can do all, and not me. Take me. The nurse can do everybody's job in the clinic, but can't everybody do the nurses? The respect for that is out the window. Who's getting up, coming, and being mistreated all day? Who's doing that? So when management can put their feet down and say, "You know what? I have hard working staff in here and I have slack staff. And you know what? I need to apologize for taking the side of the slack staff all the time, because I'm losing all my good staff." You can see when people quit, the majority of the people that are left there are the people that get their way. The people that are not, like reprimanded, like they're not punished. They're not disciplined. They don't get suspended. They don't get called in the office. They get to walk through there and do anything they want to do, and no one says anything to them. That makes it hard for people to continue to come to work every day that want a peaceful environment.
Mm-hmm.
The lines are blurred. Professional lines are blurred.
Okay. So people not being held accountable.
No, and then when they know, well, I got a hard-working nurse here. I worked 6 days a week, Steve, before I came on the provider side. It didn't matter. If they didn't have staff, they knew they could call me in the middle of the night. Somebody called out, I was coming because I wanted the patients to have their treatments. I took care of anemia. I took care of dry waste. Whatever you name it, in the clinic, I was able to do it all. I wanted to know it because I wanted patients to have a successful treatment. I enjoyed seeing the fluid coming off. I enjoyed seeing them at their dry waste. I enjoyed their anemia coming up. I enjoyed when they came in and say, I had a good day off in between treatments. I didn't cramp. I wasn't nauseous. I wasn't sick. I enjoyed seeing blood pressures within normal parameters. I enjoyed giving the patients what they came for. So I worked hard. And upper management in different places, they respected that until they didn't. I got blacklisted as a nurse.
Wow. Let me move on, but that's crazy. You got blacklisted as a nurse.
When you stand for what's right, a lot of people don't respect that, because when the DO, when the director of operation knows that his FA, not a clinic manager, FA, a facility administrator, when the director knows that they're dirty, but they know they can't hire nobody else to come oversee the clinic because nobody wants to work for you, then you're going to blacklist the people that blow the horn. And you'll sacrifice good patient care just to have a warm body in the building.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that. Right. I want to ask Larry this question, and I want to ask one question to the panel, and then we're going to close it down. I would definitely have to have a part two. But Larry, this question is for you. After winning your case and you reflect back, what do you wish the clinic had done differently with you?
I wish they would have just listened, and just because I said I didn't want reuse, there shouldn't have been a problem, And it's because, like I said, that's where it started at. And I tried everything to get along with them. I tried, even when Valentine's Day come, I brought the staff candy and the patients candy, You know what? I think they treated me wrong. I'll bring a little candy thing in there. But, I try to treat everybody nice. But this is what I want to say too. When it comes to dialysis, you must have a good nephrologist that's going to listen to you. And I had one of the best, and anything I asked, he done. He listened to me. He wasn't in no rush. And another had a couple of them really, but the main one, he really listened. And at the end, first when I started dialysis, I was going 3 days a week, 4 hours, running 4 hours and 45 minutes. Later on, about 10 years ago, something like that, I asked, could I drop down to 2 days because I lost a lot of weight? And he said, yeah, we'll try it and we'll watch your lab work. And if everything work out, so for the last 10 years now, or longer, I've been running 3 hours, 2 days a week. I'm still doing it right now. But I had a nephrologist and another nephrologist that listened to me. Meds I was taking, I said, I didn't want to take that. Let's try something else. They listen, And so I tell anybody, you must try to get you a good nephrologist that's going to listen to you and stick up to you, stick up for you, and let you do, because it's your body. Everybody's not made the same, And you know how much fluid you got on you. And you know that if you say, hey, I'm starting to get cramps, stop the flow. And they're supposed to do that, and stuff like that. And my nephrologist used to let them know, say, whatever Larry say, let him, do what he says, and that's how it worked out for 27 years so far.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Is Mitzi, you still here? I know she had a camera off.
Yes, I'm here. I don't know why the camera's not on.
Oh, okay. So I want to ask you this one last question before we go. I want to ask you this question. If you could give me a brief answer, and then I'm just going to ask one question to everyone, and then we'll go ahead and end the show. But Mitzi, what do you want? Because I see your videos and the emails, and you're advocating. What do you want policymakers, doctors, and the public to understand about this issue?
Number one, I need people to understand how deadly it is. There's 2 levels to blacklisting that I know of. One is when you're blacklisted and you can only go to the hospital, and then they allow you to do scheduled. The next is when the hospital releases you, and then you can be where I'm at now. I'm at the second part, where I can only go for critical visits. I think that if any type of legislation could be put into place, number one, this should never be able to happen without proof. There should be so much ample documentation. Now, I agree, there are some things that you just shouldn't say or do. Yeah, you should expect, okay, you said you were going to do what? Oh, well, okay. But to just advocate, I should not be risking losing my life because I spoke up and exercised my patient rights. So because you didn't like the way I did that, this is what you do. There should be an appeal process. There should be a big brother watching the big brother, because I don't understand how I fell through so many cracks other than knowing that this is just what they can do in North Carolina. What have I done where I can't go to any center in North Carolina? And there's only 2 top heavy out here. And I dialyzed with one of them earlier this year for 5 weeks when I had to go home when my aunt was on hospice, and had no problems. And every time I go to California, actually the second time, that was the second time I went. The first time I went for 30 days and dialyzed at that facility with no problems. I know the major difference is regulations. And there should be some standards of regulations across the board. But as for blacklisting, this should never be able to happen with no documentation other than what company XYZ can write or what the hospital can write. Not even the hospital would give me an example of what they were releasing me for. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. So that would be my brief answer. Pass it on.
Thank you. Dr. Chidinma, I do have one last question for you, and then I ask the panel one last question. Dr. Chidinma, because the nephrologist has to sign off on a involuntary discharge, what should happen differently when a patient is not following the expected plan or is becoming difficult to manage?
I think a patient shouldn't be discharged because they're not following the expected plan. I think they shouldn't. I do think that for a patient to be discharged, you have to get to the point where having them in your unit is going to negatively impact the care of other patients, whether that is posing a danger to the patients or posing a danger to staff, or making it so that whenever they're in the unit, staff, the clinic staff, the nurses, the techs, they are all just concentrated on this one patient, that it becomes neglectful to other patients. So I think if there is a concern in that case, again, as long as there is no emergency, as long as we're not thinking that someone's life is in danger now, at least the nephrologists, because they are medical personnel, should evaluate for any medical issues, try to de-escalate the situation, see what is going on. Is this something that we can discuss and have like a behavioral contract in place and something like that. I think that just a disagreement shouldn't be a reason for discharge. It should be, this is not going to go well for other people kind of situation. I'm of the opinion that, to each his own. So if a patient is not listening to me, hey, that's your problem. I'm not discharging a person because they are not listening to me. It's your life. It's when it becomes someone else's life that I think that then I would maybe start thinking about that.
Okay. Well, last question to everyone. We'll start with you, Richard, and then Dr. Chidima, Mitzi, and Larry. Joni had to go. But Richard, if you could change one thing tomorrow to stop involuntary discharge from happening, what would it be?
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Oh, that's okay.
One thing I would do is I would there'd be some more education put in place, and I would have some stringent the facilities, if found to be wrong, I would make certain that there would be maybe some financial remuneration or something of that nature, because we're dealing with patients' lives. We're dealing with people that multiple chronic kidney, chronic diseases. So, but I really think that education and training is the answer so that people can de-escalate. And leadership, man. You want people there that will make certain that the patient's interest is put first. And that starts at the top.
I agree. Dr. Chidima, if you could change one thing tomorrow to stop involuntary discharge from happening, what would it be?
Okay, this may not be very popular here, but I would like to point out that I don't want to stop it from happening. I do want to stop it from happening for no good reason. Let me give you an example. Remember that video that was it you that showed me that video of a patient who set another patient on fire?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was in Albania.
Right. That shouldn't happen. Like if a situation where you have someone like that should have been discharged before it got to that point, gotten some sort of help. Now, one of the things that is the problem is the mismatch between expectation and reality. I don't want to make this long, but unfortunately it's going to be. Is it mismatch between expectation and reality? An outpatient dialysis unit, ideally, is supposed to be a place where stable people come, they get dialysis and go. But that's not the reality that we have. And that's a problem because, especially in for-profit organizations, the staffing is not for complicated situations. It's for your stable patient who comes to get an outpatient treatment and you go home. Unfortunately, the patients are not that simple. Kidney patients are some of the sickest people that you have, and some of the people with the most complicated social issues going on. And so there are so many factors here, but I don't think I would want it to go away because I'm not looking at it through the lens of the person who is discharged alone. I'm looking at it through the people who are protected from someone who could be dangerous. What I would want to change is people being discharged who are not dangerous, which is really my only thing. Dangerous or disruptive enough that it's dangerous to other people. So standardizing some of this. Like, I shouldn't hear that someone in North Carolina got discharged because they asked too much about someone changing gloves. Like, that's not a thing. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. When you say that one of the criterion to be met is someone who is disruptive to the proper running of a unit, and something like that. That should be a little more defined. So someone filed too many complaints. Okay, that is not disruptive. So what is disruptive should be standardized. I think that's the one thing I would change.
Okay, thank you for that. And we lost Larry, but Mitzi, if you could change one thing tomorrow to stop involuntary discharge from happening, what would it be?
I would clean up management. I would get rid of ineffective executive vice presidents, ineffective DOs, and definitely inexperienced FAs. I think that the only way you should hire someone as an FA is if they've come through the clinic as a social worker, or they've come through as a nurse or something. They've done some position, because it's really a dangerous game when you put an FA in there and then you don't have a clinical, you don't have a charge nurse. I'm sorry. So, and just to be clear, that wasn't my only issue, the changing of gloves. That was my list goes the gamut. I didn't know heparin was expensive, because at one point they would give me 15,000 units a week. So yeah, but that would be my main thing, is because I think that if you can get people that can effectively manage, they can actually listen to things and suggestions like myself, and can tell them there's a breakdown in communication in your center. And you could use something like your whiteboard in the lobby that you've already paid for. I'm quite sure I'll bring you a marker if you need it. So when you're having a water issue, you have to walk past that whiteboard to open the lobby, you can write that down. You know, we're a little delayed today. You know, you don't have to tell us you're short staffed. We're delayed today. We will give you an ETA or be out to update briefly, instead of having people sit in your center like it's just a place to drop disabled people off. That's management. Those are things. There are things I personally believe in my situation that if they had been taken serious and they hadn't just been trying to contain stuff and just see, well, she ain't really got a legit thing, it would be an effective place right now. That place could have been an award-winning center had they actually listened to some of the things that were occurring and even gave them ideas. Show up. Just pop up. You don't have to believe me. Just come here early when they don't know you're coming, and then see what you see. So that would be my thing. And this shouldn't happen to anybody. No one should be in my situation with no documented proof. None.
Right.
None whatsoever. And I had an email stream opened up. I had to get express permission from the regional vice president's boss to send emails, because I told him, y'all forget too much. Everybody suffered from CRS, couldn't remember stuff, and that was a problem for me. So, you know, let's talk about it. Let's have these conversations. But if we're just gonna have profit in mind, then I never matter. But you don't get the right to say I now have an expiration date of 10/9/78/54321. Like what? That's what's happening in North Carolina. That's my short answer, Steve.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone. And tonight's discussion reminds us that dialysis is not just about treatment schedules and clinic policies. It's about lives, families, and the right to continue care. I showed y'all many pictures of people going through this, and we had people on the panel, Mitzi, who is still going through this, and Larry, who won his case and now is back to consistent care. When dialysis clinics say no, the consequences can be devastating. But conversations like this matter because they shine a light on a problem that should never be ignored. and as Mitzi said, this shit never happened. To our guests, thank you for your honesty and courage and for being here for 2 hours and 17 minutes. To our viewers, thank you for being part of this important conversation. And to every patient watching, keep advocating for yourself. Keep asking questions. Know that your voice matters. And we got Larry back. Let me
Hey,
catch.
Steve, I'm sorry, my phone went out on me. But look here, I just wanted to say one thing, that a lot of people don't know that only thing I would want change really is to be for dialysis patients to be treated like inmate patients. By law, by federal law, they must have life-saving treatment, and that includes dialysis. And if the law can give them treatment, why federal law can't give us treatment? No matter, you got murderers, rapists, and everything, bank robbers, but they get to get treatment 3 times a week. And why we can't get, you know.
I hear you, Larry.
That's all I have to say.
Right. And we're going to definitely have a part 2 to this, but I'd like to thank the guests for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time this Saturday night to discuss this important topic. And I do want to revisit. We had Richard Knight from the AAKP, Dr. Chidema, nephrologist, Larry Hall, dialysis patient who recently, well, not recently, but who sued DaVita, won his case, and now has consistent dialysis. And thank you to Mitzi, the blacklisted patient, who still, unfortunately, is going through this and documenting her journey on social media, and to nurse practitioner Joni for staying in this important topic. And so I'd like to say goodbye to everyone. I'm going to drop you down and sign off. But again, thank you everyone for coming on.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I'd like to reach out to
take care, everyone.
Mr. Knight, if you could reach
Richard?
out, I'd love to reach
Yeah.
out. Yeah, to connect.
Okay. Can you give him my email address or?
Yeah, I'll give you his
shoot it
email
to me.
Okay,
address.
Yeah.
thank you.
Mitzi.
Or phone number. You can text me, whatever works for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'll reach out and send that after the show, Joni. I mean, Mitzi. I don't know why I want to call you Joni. Mitzi.
No worries.
All right,
Thank
Richard,
you.
Dr.
Bye,
Chidema,
folks.
Larry, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care. Have a great night.
Good night.
Everybody
Thank
be
you.
safe.
Thank you. All right.
All
Be
right.
safe. Thank you.
To our viewers, again, thank you for being part of this important conversation. And to every patient watching, again, keep advocating for yourself. Keep asking questions and know that your voice matters. This has been Dialysis and Life with Steve, the kidney nurse. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and take care of yourself. Have a great night. Peace.
Steve on the mic, yeah, the nurse got skill, break it down smooth, keep the whole squad chill, talking about kidneys, yeah, we keep them on track, if your numbers off balance, he gon' bring them right back, got the wisdom on deck, no stress, just facts, hydration, motivation, every time he reacts, from the clinic hallway to your podcast feed, dropping gems so fresh, yeah, that's all you need, Stevethekidneynurse, yeah, you know the name, keep your body in check, yeah, we play no games, real talk, real health, yeah, we keep it pure, tap in right now, Stevethekidneynurse, yeah. The kidney nurse, yeah.